mean, it's sort of written, you've read it, obviously.
Yeah.
I wrote it in the second person because I wanted to create a little bit of distance. And I guess I could have created even more distance had I gone, completely fictionalized it. But it's essentially true story. I mean, I'm talking about, this particular period of time in a particular sort of emotional reality that's true. So in that way, it felt a lot more. I mean, it is nonfiction. So I guess it wouldn't have felt maybe natural to sort of go the other route and completely fictionalize it.
I mean, did you have a novel bubbling in your chest for many years?
No. No, I wouldn't say that. I sort of, no, definitely not. I mean, my degree was actually in nonfiction, so that was sort of my background.
Okay.
And my thesis for in grad school was a series of boxing-themed essays, and so I like research. So I guess I had always thought that I would do something that was more nonfiction. And I certainly didn't think I'd write a memoir. And then that was unexpected. But that said, I don't know that I'll write a memoir again. I mean, I can't imagine writing another memoir, but well, first of all, I didn't even know what I would write it about, but yeah, no. So I feel like at this point, I feel I've been dabbling in fiction, but I also kind of always think, it would be fun to have other more nonfiction-y ideas.
How many years have you spent in therapy total? Just talk about it in the book. I'm not just prying.
Yeah. No, of course. I'm just trying to think. I guess it was about 5 years in Boston, and then 1 year here, or 2 years here.
Okay.
And then other sort of, yeah, I mean, it was always sort of, I remember I've talked about the family therapy element too. We did some of that when I was growing up also. But not in a very sort of intense kind of way.
I remember like bouncing out of therapy in the past few months after telling things to my therapist that I've never confessed to anyone else, and there was like a real sense of freedom from shame, and just like the burdens on me were a lot lighter when I bounced out of therapy.
That's great.
Was there a therapeutic aspect to writing this book?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I would say it was. Are you short on time, by the way?
I'm sorry?
Are you okay with time? Cause I can
Yeah. You can go on forever.
Okay. Well, I guess the longer version of that is that I have finished the book, I finished that. I turned 30, and that's sort of where the book ends, more or less chronologically. And that spring, I kept sort of pushing forward and saying, "Wow, that was a really, kind of crazy year. Maybe I'll turn this into a memoir." So I started trying to write it in the first person, and it was really bad. It was really uncomfortable. I think for a lot of reasons. Number one being that it felt really. It just felt kind of cringy, I guess, to be using the first person, and so. But I did write a lot, and then finally I showed it to a friend whose opinion I really trusted, and she said, "I see your quandary. This isn't really not really working as is. And so she actually said, what if you wrote it as a novel? And that was kind of daunting as well, because I don't really, didn't really think of myself as a fiction writer. But so I kind of put it aside and thought, you know what, maybe part of the difficulty in this whole year was that I kept trying to, I was really afraid of the unknown, so I kept thinking, like, well, if I just, hold on to this book idea, if I hold on to what is known, then everything will be fine, and that really wasn't the case. And so finally, I put it aside completely and just thought, I'm just going to be open to whatever happens, and I started doing a lot of yoga, and I was writing a lot, but nothing really in particular, nothing with a goal in mind. And then, I guess thinking about what this friend had said about distance, then one day I guess it was maybe a few months after that, I started thinking, oh, maybe I could write it in the second person, and then that started to make sense to me on a lot of different levels. And so then I started writing it, and I always say that if books begin with a question, I certainly, if there's some sort of question that's driving the writing process, and I believe that there is in any, no matter what the project type is, but in this case, I was really sort of like, wow, that was a really crappy year, and by the end, I really didn't recognize myself. I felt so far from who I thought I was, and so I started writing, and the question that really drove that was really, what the hell happened? What the hell happened to me? And so it was very therapeutic. I mean, it wasn't, I had no goals to publish when I was writing it. It was really just all about being able to, because a lot of the book is about having repressed certain feelings, and so in a way, it was very healing, because it allowed me to go back and sort of, I don't want to say reclaim, but somehow re-experience what I was unable to experience the first time around. And so I just wrote with the intention of it being, therapeutic and cathartic, and really I was just doing it for myself to figure out what had happened, and so yeah, it was really useful in that way. And then the decision to publish was completely separate.
What month and year does the book end?
Well, it's 2006. I forget what I call it. The afterword. Yeah, the afterword ends in the spring of 2006.
Okay.
And then the last chapter ends. I guess that's March.
Okay. How difficult was it to craft an ending to the book?
It was so hard. It was so hard. I had a million crappy endings. And it was really difficult. At one point I had this really funny kind of, or it was funny to me, in 2006, I guess in November, I went to see Donna Summer, who I really loved when I was a kid.
Yeah, she's great.
Amazing, and so she performed at the Beacon in New York, and so I went to see her, and I ended up singing on stage with her, which was really fun. And so I tried to write that as the ending, and that was really bad. And it was bad. I was volunteering. I was running a writing group at the time, and I read it to the women in my group, and they all looked at me like, "Oh, that's fascinating." But yeah, no, it wasn't so exciting. But it was hard. It was really hard to sort of figure out the right notes